Welcome back to MotoAmerica on BN Sports, round 1 of 10 for 2017. As we are presented by Dunlop Motorcycle Tires, the only motorcycle tire designed, tested, and made in America for how you ride. And powered by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll. So here's Garrett Gerloff, our pole sitter, at a 212.676 as we're getting ready to start our very first race of the 2017 season, and it's going to be Supersport, as we have a grid of 14 riders and a mix of riders as well from different countries and from the Superstock 600 class, which we'll inform you about a little bit more later on.
Yeah, it's funny because this morning, Greg, when we got here, I thought we might need those umbrellas, you know, for other than the sun. It was really cold this morning, windy. It was starting to sprinkle and rain on the way to the racetrack, so I'm glad to see that these guys are going to get some good weather to go running. 12 laps expected as we look at Valentine DeBees on his Suzuki. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to get motorcycles fired up, so don't go anywhere on BN Sports. Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, as we prepare for MotoAmerica Round 1 Supersport race. This is scheduled for 12 laps. I'm Greg White, Jason Pridmore here, Hannah Lopa down on pit lane, and JD Beach, the 2015 champ, getting some hugs there from his team, getting ready to get out on the racetrack. And Jason, even though it's only 12 laps around this 3.4-mile circuit, tire wear is always a concern. For sure, but the thing about Circuit of the Americas that's interesting is it's really got two different views of it. But we'll get to the starting grid real quick, Greg. We got Garrett Gerloff, as we said, on pole. Valentine DeBees, who I expect to be able to run the pace with these guys. It's going to be interesting to see what they've done with that Suzuki. Going back to the third row, we've talked about those other rows prior. Brandon Posh jumping up from KTM 390. Lucas Silva, JC Camacho. Brandon Cleveland, Caroline Olsen, and Jody Berry in his first 600 race, also a KTM 390 kid from last year.
One thing I want you to take note of is the different colors on those numbers. Yellow and red indicates that these riders are actually registered for the Superstock 600 class, which has their first round at Road Atlanta next weekend.
Yeah, and how
so
that
they're being consumed and invited to the Supersport class.
Yeah, exactly, Greg. There was a certain amount of people that were invited to come and do this race, Superstock riders, and a lot of them are using it just for the testing side of things to make sure that they're ready to go for next weekend in Atlanta. And you can see here, everybody's getting the 30-second board. And this is it. We've been waiting for this for a full year already, Greg, and it's going to be interesting to see the battle between the two teammates, obviously Gerloff and JD Beach, but I think Valentine's got something for him. He's been riding amazing, and the test a couple weeks ago, I was very well impressed with him.
Valentine DeBees, I think there's a good note of the M4X Star Suzuki rider that this is his second season, only his second season. So getting another crack at all these racetracks, plus being more comfortable with the Dunlop tires as well as the GSXR 600 that he's on, and his team, M4X Star Suzuki, seeming to find a little bit extra in that motor over the winter. Hard at work on the dyno, and he's really comfortable, is Valentine DeBees. Also, when we talk about the number 53, it's worth mentioning that when he came to the United States last year, that he had an injury that he was working with, a shoulder injury. He spent the offseason rehabbing that and getting stronger and stronger. So not great news for his competition as Valentine DeBees continues to improve here in the United States in MotoAmerica.
Yeah, I think that now he's gone to all these tracks. He's seen him. He's been with the team a year. That's a big advantage for a rider, especially coming from another country that has never really been a part of a series. It can be very difficult to just kind of step right in with a team that's as experienced as a team that he stepped into. But he had some great results. He won at Road America, if you remember. And at the test a couple of weeks ago, I really noticed that when he comes out of the pits, he's the first guy out of the pits. He's the first guy off on the warm-up lap here. It's almost like a psychological thing where he's trying to get himself to be right where he wants to be for these races. So there's a lot of storylines going into this season. And, of course, next weekend when we get to Road Atlanta, we're going to have probably double the size grid with the more Superstock riders that will get there also.
So you can see the distinction in number plates there of those Superstock 600 riders. Now, these classes race together during the course of the season, And if you continue to join us here when we get the Superbike and Superstock 1000, they race at the same time. However, with the class Supersport, it doesn't matter. You actually, if you're a Superstock 600 rider, you get points for both classes. So when Superstock 600 goes, they'll have their own points in their championship, but if you finish 5th overall in the race, combined with Supersport, you still get 5th place points overall in Supersport. So this doesn't actually do anything to the Superstock 600 championship, but it does do something for the Supersport championship in terms of getting a running order. Now, any rider who's in Superstock 600, they were allowed to come here 3 weeks ago and test, and if they showed that they were competent enough and quick enough to race in Supersport, they got the invitation. Everyone who did show up got an invitation, and they had the ability to come. There were some riders that came out and practiced and didn't make qualifying based off of 107% of the fastest time. So that was a 2:12.676 set by Garrett Gerloff. The cutoff time was a 2-minute, 21-second, .963. So anyone who didn't quite make that time, they didn't make the grid. But here we are. We're set with 14 riders, and it's all about, I think, these top 3. Plus, I want to keep an eye on 6th place rider as well, Nick McFadden, because he's a rider that is going to be doing that full season on the 16 bike, McFadden, in the Superstock 600 class. How close can he get to these competitors?
I think he'll be really close, especially the first couple of laps here. There won't be a lot in it. I think the pack will be strung out a little bit by the first 3. And then I think the battle for 4th and back is going to be really interesting. I think Daytona Anderson has shown a great speed this weekend. Brandon Posh went quicker in the test than he had gone so far this weekend. So here we go.
So hold on to your hats, folks, because we're getting ready to go racing. It's round number 1, the first race of the season for the 2017 MotoAmerica Championship Supersport, and it's pinned, and we're off and running, and it looks like Valentine DeBee's got a good launch.
And he's doing some things out there that are a little different than everybody else. Benny Solis, a great launch from row 2. He's going to slot that Honda into 3rd as we see Valentine lead into turn 1.
Garrett Gerloff back there in 4th spot, temporarily just behind Benny Solis on that Honda, but it's these 2 riders, JD Beach right behind him. So riders making their way cleanly through the first couple of corners, and here we go into the fast-flowing section, the beginning part of this racetrack.
Watch Benny. He might try to do something here in the middle of this turn 3, turn 5 here. He's not able to, but he made a big gearing change on that Honda this morning. They were trying to run first gear like the Yamahas and the Suzukis were capable of, and they just weren't able to do it with the Honda. So Benny made a big change this morning. They only had a 10-minute warm-up, Greg, but it looks like so far so good for Benny and his team.
Valentine DeBee's M4 X-Star Suzuki leading the way from a Monster Energy Yamalube YES Graves Yamaha rider JD Beach as the number 1 plate, trying to make a move on the H35. That's a Honda CBR 600RR. Solis up and out of the saddle there for a moment. Looks like he's getting settled in. Now it's that long drag down the back straightaway. And it looks like Garrett Gerloff's got some work to do as he makes his way by Benny Solis in the draft. Something we would expect from a brand new R6 as now JD Beach takes over the lead, sliding his way into that corner. So it's now JD Beach leading the way over Valentine DeBee's.
Yeah, and this is where these guys will really start to string themselves out. These first 2 guys, look at how good Valentine is.
Whoa!
Through this double right, going into the infield section. Now, folks are going to go back to first here, back to first gear. That not only helps them slow the bike down, but helps them get out of here. Now, what Valentine does here, Greg, he goes 2nd, 3rd, up to 4th in this section. All the other bikes are 3rd. So what he's trying to do is maximize his roll speed through the end part of this corner. 3rd gear's a little bit too short for him. 4th gear might be a little bit too tall, but he's relying on that roll speed to get him through there.
That was an incredible run to be able to go underneath up the inside is now JD Beach. He's a monster on the brakes. He's going to try to park him. He gets on the gas, gets the motorcycle turned. DeBee's now, side by side. A look over his shoulder up the front straightaway. It's going to be Valentine DeBee's with the advantage as they head up the hill into the signature turn number 1. Now it looks like JD Beach going to try to go up the inside. He sends his R6 sideways. He'll take it over for a moment. DeBee's has a nice tight line, and down to turn number 2 they go. And so it is JD Beach for the moment. Boy, Jason, it's going to be interesting to see if JD can hold on to the lead. If he can get out of turn 11 on that back straightaway, how much legs this new R6 has.
Well, this is where Valentine, I think he wants to try to just pester these guys all the time and do whatever he can to try to not let them lead, control the pace a little bit more. both of them right now are pulling away just ever so slightly from Garrett, but you watch. Garrett will start putting these laps together, and he'll start closing that gap back up. And we talked earlier about Nick McFadden doing a great job
Number
here
16.
on that Superstock bike, holding on to the back of Benny Solis a little bit and just holding off Daytona Anderson on that ridiculous R6.
Nick McFadden on that M4 Med-Age Suzuki. As we look at Monster Energy, Yamalu, YES, Grave, Yamaha. Wow, look at the drive that Valentine DeBees is trying to get. He was trying something different to try to chase down. Oh, and it looks like Ryder down.
It's one of the. I don't know if it's. Yeah, it's hard to see the name.
Looks like
on
one of
that
the
one.
M4.
It does. I don't know if it's Brandon
X-Star
Cleveland.
Suzuki's.
I can't
It could
tell.
be. It definitely could be. Number 975, Brandon Cleveland, who qualified in the 10th spot. Might be him. So we continue our battle up front. It's JD Beach, the number 95. Oh! Valentine DeBees pushing the issue, and down he goes.
This is important, Greg. He's got to get up and try to get these points. I know it sounds crazy, but when you really look at what our championship is right now, there's 3 guys that have the top potential to win the championship. So Valentine's got to get up, get going, try to hopefully that there's nothing wrong with that bike. And he's going to lose the front real easy here into this right-hand corner. We've seen this a couple times today, but, yeah, it almost looked like he may have just touched the bike down and just picked the front tire up, but that's frustrating for him. That's a section that I've watched him be incredibly good at. But look at what J.D. Beach did. I said at the beginning of the show that he had a lot of confidence because he felt like he was a lot closer to the guys he needed to be closer to. And now that's going to bump Benny Solis up to 3rd place. So these guys just got to keep going. We got a red flag, Greg.
Okay.
And not sure if that's because maybe some debris on the track or, we had a couple guys go down this particular session. So Valentine DeBees comes across the line, wheeling. He saw that red flag, and he's probably happy to see it.
So big break for the M4 X-Star Suzuki rider Valentine DeBees. And also a bit of a break, I think, for Garrett Gerloff, giving him another chance because Gerloff has shown some speed, but here's another look at the crash,
yeah,
Jason.
Here you go. You can see he's just lost that front end a little bit there, Greg. And
a characteristic about this racetrack, though, here, as we take another look at the crash, you can just see him losing that front end. If you're new to motorcycle racing, we just call that tuck in the front, by the way.
Yep.
And one of the great things about the Circuit of the Americas is how much room they have here in Texas and how much asphalt. So instead of that thing going into the kitty litter and flipping or gathering up a bunch of, gravel, that bike, he was able to pick that bike up and keep going.
It's so much better because we definitely don't want to hit barriers. As racers, our technology has come such a long way where these bikes have gotten so fast. Leather technology, helmet technology has gotten really well, but it's nice coming to a racetrack that has concerns about the riders also. I know this track was, Formula One built, but Kevin Schwantz had a big hand in what was going on with the design of this racetrack. And so when a bike falls and starts hitting gravel traps and flipping, it's a hard thing. Those gravel traps are there to protect us from hitting walls and things. But when you come to Circuit of the Americas, you can see Valentine was able to pick that bike up and get back to the pits and have his crew fix whatever damage might have been done. And at some of the tracks we go to, that wouldn't be an option if his bike started flipping in grass or other things.
So we are under red flag conditions here in the Supersport race, round number 1 of the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. And red flag, of course, means that the race has stopped. We'll revert back to the last lap that every rider completed, which means we are so early on in the race, we might actually revert back to the original start. We'll have to find out what MotoAmerica wants to do on that. So riders right now are on cruise control mode. There's no racing allowed at this point. You can see feet are going in the air, hands will go in the air, signaling to the riders behind them that riders are coming in. We can see it looks like off the racing line there that there must be some fluid on the racetrack as corner workers have the kitty litter down, and they are going to try to get some of that up. Jason, does that look familiar?
It looks like it's in the S's to me.
Yeah.
It looks like it's
6,
sort of like
7, 8 maybe?
Yeah,
6 or 8,
Greg,
yeah.
maybe even a little bit further back, maybe 4 or 6, I think for sure. But this isn't on the track. This is way off the track. So maybe there's some stuff that they're going to go all the way back down the track and look at and see. And maybe that was one of the reasons. I believe it was Brandon who did fall, Greg, Brandon Cleveland, because he hasn't come back around. So here you go. Here's a view of what's going on. And he's crashed fairly early, back further, and you can see there might be a line of fluid on the ground. So that's why the corner workers are out there doing their job and keeping everyone safe, and hopefully we'll be able to get that cleaned up.
Usually on a crash like that, it's going to be one of two things. Usually, it's either going to be Oil, of course, X-Star oil, Suzuki's brand of oil, either that or it's going to be some type of coolant. Generally on a crash like that, on that side of the motorcycle, you probably have a little bit of an oil spill. So back to the pits right now in the M4 X-Star Suzuki team. Valentine DeBees on the 53, his crew getting those tire warmers on. And they're going to be taking a look. They do have the ability to do very limited things to the motorcycle.
And it doesn't look like they have to do much, which is good. And that's going to – and even Valentine, believe it or not, getting a chance to go out and do a full lap the way he just did, he's going to be able to come back in with more information and say what needs to be fixed or not. It didn't look like the guys were in a big hurry to try to fix a ton of stuff on that motorcycle, so that's a good sign.
You can see actually part of the middle part of your screen, you can see that those red numbers, those are signifying the garages. And we have 34 garages here at Circuit of the America. The track is 3.4 miles long. Kevin Schwantz's GP number was 34.
That's right.
All by design, actually. 3.427 miles long is this road course. A long one, and everyone will tell you it's one of the most physically demanding courses on the circuit. But it's also technical, isn't it, Jason? When we talk about a technical racetrack, we've talked about Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca like that, this track. What exactly does a technical racetrack mean?
Well, I think this place, if you look at the way the S's are designed after turn one, the S's that you go into are fast, and you slowly decrease your speed all the way through them. So you got a 7-corner stretch where you run into them very fast, and they're from right to left, all the way through, and you're slowing down as you're going through it. So technically, Greg, there's a couple spots here where you're doing a couple downshifts at full lean angle to be able to make up your time going in and still be able to get the bike to pull on the way out. Turn 6 here is that example. When I sat up there, I listened to a lot of guys doing downshifts as they start to go. As we look at a restart of the grid here, we can see that Valentine got a great jump, had a little bit of wheel hop though, and JD was able to get that jump up the line. Then, quite to the contrary, Garrett got a horrible start. Was almost back as far as 5th off the line. But when you get to the top of this hill, this is very slow. Then from here, you just march your speed all the way up through these S's until you get to the last 2 or 3. The other thing that's about this place, Greg, is the braking. Braking here is so hard, and you got to go all the way back to first gear. Not too many tracks that we go to around the country in the rest of our 10-race series this year are you going to see these 600s going back to first gear. Here we have 5 different areas where they're going to be doing that. Turn 1, turn 11, 12, 16, and turn 20. So going back to think about how often you go back to first gear on your street, or on your street bike rides, for those out there that are doing a lot of riding, not very often. These guys are doing it a lot here. So you've got 170 mile an hour back straightaway, or 160 on these little bikes, but then you got 5 first gear turns also.
There's JD Beach, who was leading the way, had a great start, had a little battle going on with Valentine DeBees, riding for the Monster Energy Yamalube YES Graves Yamaha team. And JD Beach having a much better start to the season this year than he did last year. Interesting that when we went from 2015 to 2016, there was rule changes in MotoAmerica in terms of what those Supersport bikes could have on them. And that change really affected the baseline setting, the setup that JD Beach likes. And it took the team probably a quarter of the season before he really got going. And then towards the end of the season, he just dominated.
Another advantage of coming to the MotoGP festival.
A good look at the canopies that they have lined up as we are guests of MotoGP this weekend. We're going to take a commercial break as we take a look at Valentine DeBees, who gets another crack at it on his M4 X-Star Suzuki. Stay with us here on BN Sports. We'll be back for the restart of Supersport in a moment. We're back at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. It is round 1 of the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. You can see we have a red flag due to track conditions. A rider went down and laid some fluids just off the racing line, so corner workers are cleaning that up as we see the crowd sticking around for a MotoGP weekend. You can see it's going right across the racing line, so a very critical cleanup. And in racing, we call that the kitty litter. So when the rider went down, Brandon Cleland on the 975, he rides for the M4 X-Star Suzuki team. When he went down, his motorcycle probably hit that deck and then started laying some oil down on the ground. So hopefully he is okay, and the motorcycle, we'll see if they're going to try to repair that, even if they get that back to the pits. But One rider for sure that's going to be taking advantage of this red flag is Valentine DeBees, because DeBees was in second spot and he crashed. So there's Valentine on the right. That number 85 machine is actually a bike that's lined up for a race coming up, the Superbike Superstock 1000 race coming up after this. So Circuit of the Americas, incredible racetrack here. 20 turns, 11 lefts, 9 rights, 130 feet of elevation. Really difficult to discern that difference there. Crew chief and rider talking about what is going on. We have a good bit of talent, and from new riders to extremely talented race winner, experienced riders that are out here on this racetrack. Caroline Olsen, who's from Norway, is here. She qualified in the 11th position on her Superstock 600 machine. Her best lap, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, around this racetrack at a 2:18.639. Now, the fast time that we saw before the red flag, we don't really know, because they got out on their first lap and they were working on that second lap, so we couldn't even record a time.
Right.
But we do know that a 2:12.676 is the fastest time that we saw in qualifying, and that was done on a softer tire. But we are under red flag conditions right now as we're waiting for the crew to clean all this up, and then we're going to get going again.
Yeah, and you can see that Brandon lost it in that left-hander, Greg. The bike slid across the track, so here we go. We go back and look at the start again. And also, Benny Solis, he's been racing out in Southern Cal a lot, and he's been on that little Honda getting ripping starts out there, and he did the same thing here. You can see Nick McFadden trying to go up the inside up there in fourth, but Garrett didn't get a very good start, but kind of ducked in behind Benny at the start of this lap and was able to not lose too much touch. But Valentine took the lead as they came back down turn 2, and him and JD Beach for the first lap kind of swapped back and forth. As you can see, JD going underneath him. Coming into the last corner, Valentine kind of squares him up, goes back by, but JD was able to, again, to kind of draft him up this front straightaway. We can do that here. We've got 2 or 3 different spots at this track where we can do some drafting. You're going to see him pull out of the draft, kind of beeline himself straight for that inside curbing. You really got to get your apex speed controlled there, which JD did beautifully as they head down into turn 2. Now, this is where we ran into problems. We broke at the end of the turn 11, down at the end of the back straightaway, and Valentine tips in, and I can't tell from that view. He may have just lost the front. He may have caught a tiny bit of the curbing. The curbing here is real low, but he's going to get saved. And here you go. Here's the reason why. You can see all this group of 5 have checked up, and the reason for that is that Brandon had crashed in the left-hander coming under the bridge, and his bike went sliding across another part of the circuit, and we're just glad to see him up and okay. He's a local rider from here in Texas, and very fast guy that's going to be doing the whole series this year with that M4 team.
Fort Worth, Texas is where Brandon Cleland and his day is probably done in that M4 X-Star Suzuki. We have a couple other riders in the mix that are also from Texas. JC Camacho on the Alice Motorsports. He's on a GSXR 600. He's from Deer Park, Texas. And the reigning champ, Garrett Gerloff from New Waverly, Texas, on that Monster Energy Yamalu YES Graves Yamaha. Now, Jason, this weekend has been extremely interesting because our normal race weekends, say Road Atlanta coming up is an example. We start practicing on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. MotoAmerica is the premier. That's why everybody shows up. When we share with MotoGP, though, it was a little different because these riders actually had to get out on track on Thursday for practice.
Yeah, they did. They got to come out here and ride a little bit on Thursday, which is really unusual. So, you know, it's going to be great. I think Hannah has Valentine down there. Let's hear what he has to say.
That's right, guys. I'm down here with Valentine DeBees. Valentine, why don't you tell us a little bit about what just happened?
I was pushing a little bit too much, and the wind changed compared to yesterday. So now I have to take it in consideration and change my line. So yeah, it's my own mistake. The bike worked well, but fortunately there is a red flag, so I can start again from my second position and fight again for the victory.
All right, you guys heard it here. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks. So it looks like maybe the wind caught him out on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and it can happen quick. You heard him say he was pushing a little bit hard, and you can see Benny They're talking with Marco and Jason. They're talking about any little changes, or what did you see? What did you notice when you were out there? Because this morning, like I said, he got a 10-minute session on a whole new, basically a new motorcycle. So, now he's talking to his crew. I wonder if they're making any changes or not making any changes. But that's the advantages. But boy, Valentine really gets a second chance, doesn't he? I mean, all they have to do is one more lap, and he would have picked that bike up and still got himself back up to a decent spot to collect points. But now he's got the chance to go out there and try to win again.
Valentine knows, too, what's at stake. Obviously, in race number 1, you think, oh, we have a long way to go in this championship because Supersport usually has 2 races per weekend. But his experience in the FIM World Endurance, it's never over till it's over, as you know, Jason.
Yeah, and that's why, you and I said it yesterday when we saw Garrett picking up his bike. How many times have we sat here and watched kids just walk off, or watch people just walk off from their motorcycle? That kid jumped up, ran to his bike, wanted to get going again, probably realized that it was a slow crash. Hopefully nothing had happened to his motorcycle, and got going again. It's so important, and again, this track lends itself to that you keep your wits about you and realize, hey, there's a championship to be won, and this is one race of many, so we've got to be able to try to get our bike back up and going again in case there is a red flag. There's Wayne Ranney. We heard a little bit from him earlier on. Again, it's been great last couple, 2 or 3 years, being able to see him at all of the races. He comes to all of them.
So Wayne Ranney with a little peace sign. He's the maestro of MotoAmerica. But Hannah's down with another rider during this red flag. Hannah?
All right, guys, I'm down here with Garrett Gerloff. Garrett, you got off to a really good start. A little bit of a hang-up here. How are you feeling to get back out there?
Yeah, not bad. Actually, it wasn't the best start. I was just getting used to the clutch. It feels a little different than practice. But anyway, my bike feels really good. I feel really good, and we're definitely looking forward to getting another chance to be right there with JD on the restart.
What do you need to focus on to keep this momentum going once you get back out there?
Just focus on hitting my marks and be aware of the wind change. It's a little bit different than earlier, and it'll blow you into a corner too fast or too slow, so just got to be aware of that.
All right, well, best of luck to you. Jason, Greg, back to you.
All right, thanks. So, yeah, I mean, that wind. So, not only is Garrett talking about the change, say, from yesterday or even Thursday when they went out, but also the wind direction from the test. There's a good look at Caroline Olsen on that Mean Motorsports Yamaha. I think she's from Norway.
You think so?
Yeah,
maybe?
I do.
Maybe from Norway. So, yeah, and this morning I think the wind was pushing the riders down the back straightaway. I think I heard you make mention of that to me earlier on when we were in MotoAmerica paddock talking to some people. And now being able to watch, it's important as a rider to use every advantage you can. And one of the things I used to always do when I was rolling out of pit lane was looking at flags because you could always tell if the wind directions had changed or not changed, and you could utilize that to the best of your advantage when you're out there during the race.
A good look at a young fan with earphones on, because the louder the racing, the better the racing here at Circuit of the Americas. So it looks like our BMW safety car is going to be rolling off the race course here. We saw another car on track, so I would imagine that the racetrack is getting ready to get back going. As another look at Garrett Gerloff, who chooses to keep his helmet on this one. He's ready to go racing.
Yeah.
Now, Garrett alluded to he's trying to get used to the clutch. It felt different. I mean, oftentimes with teams of this caliber, that's one of the things they'll do is they'll change the clutch plates out and make them fresh for the race, right?
That's correct, yeah. And so now he's got to start under that clutch. And, these guys have been testing, though. So they've done some starts and things like that. So, hopefully this next start will give him a little bit more confidence. He's seen a lap, and we know Hannah's back down there with somebody else.
Hannah? All right, well, thought Hannah had somebody there, but she was with Benny Solis, and he turned around and walked away. So obviously, Benny knows.
Maybe he's a little shy.
Benny is not shy. We know that for sure. But word's probably being passed around that we're getting pretty close to get ready to go racing. So Benny had to go get his helmet on, as Valentine DeBees has his on, and he is ready to go. A little diffuser there on the front of the helmet. Let's go back down to Hannah, who has Benny Solis probably with his helmet on. Just a guess. Hannah?
Down here with Benny Solis, we're getting ready to go back out on the grid. Benny, you were running fourth there for a while, only Honda on the grid. Tell us what's going through your mind right now.
Right now, same thing as the first race. Just focus on a good start. We got a good start last time, so hopefully I can replicate that or maybe improve a little bit. And then just race as hard as the first time. It's unfortunate we got a red flag because we got cut down to 8 laps, but it'll be a good fun race.
All right, thanks, Benny. Back to you guys.
All right, great information. That usually happens due to time constraints. We're cut down to 8 laps on this one. But so that goes from 12 to 8, so better for the tire situation.
Not only that, but I think it gives somebody like Benny and Valentine a little bit of an advantage, if I'm being honest, because I think that both those guys, Benny specifically, I think will be able to hang it out on the newer, it'll make his tires a little bit newer for longer, and if he can get in there and get in the way and mix some things up, or Valentine and JD are there mixing things up, it'll allow him to be closer at the end of the race. So we just got to wait and see what's going to happen here as we look at Bryce Prince looking on, and he's going to be coming up in a race a little bit later on. He was familiar with the 600 class last year, obviously in the Superstock category, and he was our defending 600 Superstock champion. Now he's bumped up to the 1,000, riding for Mean Motorsports.
Matter of fact, Bryce Prince won that championship by 132 points by the end of the year.
Kind of dominant, wasn't he, last year in Superstock?
Sure was.
So, and you know, this is last week when he came here, or 2 weeks ago when they came to test. This was a brand new track to him because he's never raced here, and so he's had some things to get sorted out. Obviously, jumping from a 600 to 1,000 is a little bit different, but we'll talk some more about him, I'm sure, as we go. As we look at Sylvain Berrier, another great addition to our paddock, and good guy, Sylvain. He I did some world endurance with him. We've seen him in World Superbike riding for BMW over there, and former 1,000 Superstock world champion also.
Yeah, he's won 2 of those. So
yes.
very talented rider. Coming off of actually an injury that slowed him down a bit for the last year or so. So he's now racing with Scheibe Motorsports, who we saw on a BMW, like you're saying. We saw Steve Rapp racing for Scheibe last year and a couple other riders. So, you know, I talked to Steve Scheibe, the team owner of that team. We'll talk about that more in Superbike. But Scheibe's intention is to race the entire season.
And he had some weird injuries. He had like some injuries like in car accidents and things. So he just went through a bad run. I think Matthew Orange there.
Yep.
And another guy that's qualified for Superbikes. They followed the series a little bit last year. He's on a new bike, I think this year on the ZX10. Was watching him run around earlier this morning. So looks like pit lane's probably going to be opening here relatively shortly. When we see them holding the green flag, that's a good sign. So it's a shame that we're first race of the year is going to get shortened, but due to a little time constraints and the safety, it was good that they got that red flag out when they did, Greg, because those guys were coming up the front straightaway and getting close to going into that section.
And we mentioned that this race is scheduled for 12, but it's been reduced to 8 laps. So that is going to be a mad dash, because really, if you take a look at that, going from 12 to 8 laps is going to reduce the amount of thought how to conserve those tires. I mean, the Dunlop tires here, which are the homologated brand, so everyone in the MotoAmerica series races on Dunlop tires. Dunlop does an outstanding job of making tires here in Buffalo, and then they bring them right to the racetrack. So like we've said before, those tires they're designed and tested and made right here in the United States. But I don't care how great the tire is, I don't care if it's car racing, motorcycle racing, tire wear or wear in a race is always going to be an issue at some point. And so riders always think about it. The difference is that in the MotoGP category, the riders are very concerned about the front tire, and if the front tire can go the distance. Here, because of how hard you can accelerate on these 600s and even in the Superbikes, as now pit lane is open, the green flags are flying, it's all about that rear tire wear and managing that.
And, you know, this guy here came back to his crew, and they probably said, hey, listen, you know, Valentine fell behind you. You were already starting to pull a little bit of a gap, and you had 2 seconds on Garrett. That's gonna give him a lot of confidence. And you can see JD looking back right now to see how many people are going to come out with him, so that he doesn't get around quicker than everybody else, and his tires get cold sitting on the grid, waiting for everybody else to come back around.
So the field goes out. More than likely minus the 975 of Brandon Cleland. We didn't see his motorcycle getting worked on down there on pit lane. Original grid positions they will take. For 8 laps, you can see that scrolling on the bottom of your screen. And there the riders go through that kitty litter section. Now, Jason, if you're a normal rider, someone like me who's not very fast. I mean, when you go through something like that, or how do you put that out of your head that kitty litter's out there?
You literally have to go run through it, and you saw a couple of the guys run through the paint on the right, but that stuff was still there. A couple of the guys were using the paint to go through that section, but you've got to kind of trust and hope that it's dried up a little bit. That stuff works amazing, by the way. A lot of people don't know how good that stuff really works, but if you go out and you run through it, and of course, the good news is it's kind of a one-line section through there, so it's gonna get cleaned up pretty quickly on the line, and I think probably by the Superbike race we hardly will even see it.
So starting from pole position yet again is going to be Garrett Gerloff, who gets a second shot at that clutch. Valentine DeBees, after his get off, picking up the bike and keep rolling, he'll start in second spot. JD Beach will be third. That'll make up your front row. That rider 35, Benny Solis, he starts in fifth position. Ahead of him is Daytona Anderson on the 104. Nick McFadden out of Owensboro, Kentucky on the M4 Med-H Suzuki. Yeah, he knows the Haydens.
Yes,
they train together. That is just a whole clan of riders. Jake Lewis,
JD Beach, obviously.
JD Beach in the mix. I mean, that is,
he told me he just bought some property, and he's only 20 minutes or something from the Haydens, and he says he bought some property, and they're just doing turn track only. The motocross side of it, they're not jumping. They're not doing that stuff anymore. It's all turn track stuff. So they've got tons of property. They got 2 different tracks.
JD Beach?
Yeah. So he was talking about how he is, because he broke his leg during the off season and got it fixed, and was ready for some testing, which he was very fortunate. But he's like, I'm just doing turn tracks now and cycling and
it's
things.
So good. I remember when JD Beach won the Red Bull Rookies Cup in MotoGP and had like a van. And I mean, that was it. Just broke and living as a racer does, and all he cared about was racing a motorcycle and would do anything. And it's good to see that the 2015 Supersport champion has got a little bit of money he can put into some land and start to grow some roots. And it's really good to see.
No, it's awesome.
Garrett Gerloff, the Texan out of New Waverly, will take that pole position. Last minute to his crew told to get off the grid and get things cleared so we can get moving. Valentine DeBees, you can see the marks on his leathers that were new when we started this race. Number 230 back there is Lucas Silva out of Miami, Florida on the ATR Performance Yamaha R6. In a good spot, he starts 8th. So the way that this grid starts, very similar, exactly the same as MotoGP, exactly the same point structure as well.
Exactly, yeah, and be interesting to see. Last year when this was going on, they're going to go ahead and start it, Greg. I thought maybe they were going to do a siding lap, like come out of the pits. And no, they're going to do a siding lap. That's what I thought. They came out of the pits, did a siding lap. Yep. Now they're going to get their warm-up lap. They give the riders an opportunity to go out and see where the dry sweep actually was on the siding lap. So now that they'll know, these guys will get a little bit more up to speed on their warm-up lap.
Number 21 is Brandon Posh, by the way, on the M4 X-Star Suzuki. He was the first rider to jump out there.
Yep.
Interesting note about Brandon, wouldn't you say? He goes from RC 390 Cup champion directly into Supersport.
Yes, he goes right into Supersport, and really it's because the dynamics of our series right now, Superstock wise, there really wasn't any Superstock rides really available. And what has ended up happening is a lot of these guys are paying for their rides, and with some of the bigger teams that you see. And Brandon had a great opportunity posed to him by the M4 X-Star Suzuki team. Chris Ulrich's been running that team for a bunch of years, and being able to, they had a Supersport position available, and they offered it to Brandon. He's a young kid. He's 16.
Just turned 16.
Yeah. Very, very intelligent guy. Puts a lot of pressure on himself, but he's a very, very good kid. And hopefully with the experience of that team, they can help mature him, move him along, and get him to where he wants to get. But it is a great opportunity. But I think him going up against Garrett Gerloff, and Valentine, and JD Beach, and Benny Solis, and some of these other kind of almost veterans of the class will be good for him to be able to see exactly where he stacks up. And we know he's going to be on a good motorcycle, so it'll give him an opportunity to test himself against them.
It's Caroline Olsen on that Mean Motorsports Yamaha. This is probably the only opportunity that the riders who are actually going to be full-time in the Superstock 600 class get a chance to ride on slick tires, which is standard in Supersport. But when they race at Road Atlanta in their own class, they're going to be on DOT tires Similar rubber, similar construction, but with grooves in them.
Yeah, everything will be very similar for these guys and girls, obviously. Caroline, I think, is the only girl in our class right now for here at COTA. But yeah, Greg, it's exactly right. And tire constructions and things like that are very similar, so it's not a lot to get used to. And we should get a good look here at Daytona Anderson, who has kind of had a little bit of an injury-ridden last couple of years. I've seen him out at CVMA at Chuckwalla a bunch on 1,000. And so it's great to see him back on a 600, riding with some confidence, putting in a lot of laps. I watched him here at the test. I watched him here over the course of the weekend. He's putting in a lot of laps. So get ready to go again here. Let's see if Garrett can get a better start.
Our 4th place qualifier, the 104 Daytona Anderson. He comes from Riverside, California on the Ridiculous Racing Yamaha R6. We'll see if Daytona Anderson can get himself a better start and mix it up with these front 3. Last-minute adjustments to the Arai helmet by Valentine DeBees right there in the middle part of your screen, running that 53. So Garrett Gerloff with a bit of a reprise, as well as Valentine DeBees. But JD Beach kind of got the short end of the stick. We'll see if JD, who's the closest one to turn number 1 at this point, is going to be able to get it. Here we go. On the restart, revs are up. Clutches are out. A better start from Garrett Gerloff.
Absolutely. Let's see if he can turn that into something. A little bit of a wheelie, but you can see the Suzuki and the Yamaha are back up front. Let's see if Benny Solis tries to go under Gerloff. He can't. Valentine leads the way into turn 1.
JD Beach up underneath as Garrett Gerloff tries to sweep around the outside. So Valentine DeBees with another great launch. Then it's JD Beach, Gerloff. And it's that Honda, the H35 of Benny Solis, right there in the mix. And a good start from Nick McFadden.
Right behind them. So if he can just kind of get himself to pull along, and you can see this is what DeBees wants to do. He wants to lead from the start, and he wants to try to get out front and then make these Yamahas chase him. You can see Benny is right up the back of Garrett Gerloff right now on that Honda, and he looks really good mid-corner on that bike.
He certainly does. It was the middle part of the racetrack where Solis made a bit of a mistake and lost some ground. We'll see if he's a little bit more patient on this first lap. A reduced race to 8, as you can see JD Beach really hard on the binders, trying to get slowed down there.
See how hard Valentine comes off that turn in first gear. Now, can JD Beach draft him? It looks like he certainly can. It's going to be a braking battle when they get down to the end of this back straightaway, and he's able to slingshot him just before the braking zone. Some big bumps going in here where they start their braking. So JD takes the lead away from Valentine.
And Valentine, with a little bit of slip on the front end, had to kind of save that. Lost another bike length or 2 on the brakes. See if Valentine gets through this section cleanly.
Yep, he does this time. And you go through there the first time as a rider after just picking yourself up, and definitely going to be a little bit more cautious of what's going on. But these are the 3 guys that we kind of figure were going to do their thing. Now the Yamahas go first, second, third through this turn here, and they just kind of roll through there in third. You can see Valentine's way further out. That's going to be because that shift to 4th, when he goes to 4th, is going to give him a little bit more roll speed. Now, I think he probably went a little wider than he wanted to there. So we'll see if he makes that correction the next time he comes through. Then they go back 1 gear for that last lap, up a gear, and then back to first gear here for this last corner.
Turning the throttle wide open, JD Beach already with a little bit of an advantage. Garrett Gerloff definitely a better start, but the net of it all is the same result before Valentine DeBees went down.
And Garrett set that time of a 12, I believe it was a 12, what was it yesterday, Greg? We're going to look at these times, 12.6 yesterday, but you can see JD Beach is very, very determined. I tell you right now, it could change the climate of what this championship could be. If he can come out here and have a dominating win, that means that he has picked up exactly where he left off last year. And we saw this a little bit last year where JD would check out, and then Garrett would have trouble getting by DeBees, and then these 2 guys in second and third would just kind of end up racing against each other the whole time. Right now, Garrett just is probably telling himself, I gotta get by, because he's getting held up just a little bit here. And when they go back down this back straightaway, you're probably going to see that R6 just kind of creep by that GSX R600.
So JD Beach leads the way. Now keep in mind, JD Beach is coming off of a 7-race win streak to end 2016 in his bid to try to regain that title, a title which Garrett Gerloff won by only 4 points.
That was an incredibly close championship. Here comes Garrett Gerloff now, using the motor of that Yamaha R6, a brand new bike for 2017. A bike which a lot of people said, oh, it's cosmetic changes, which the riders have said, no way. There's a lot of different stuff and different feel.
Just the way the bike sits, it looks like you sit in this R6 a little bit more than the old one. It's the common thing that I've been hearing a lot. You can see Valentine's going to try to square Garrett up here.
Oh, up
That's
the
exactly,
inside.
This is what he wants to do. The fact is he just can't get close enough to JD to do that. Now, he goes up to fourth. Let's see if he goes out quite as wide as he did the last lap. You see this, Greg? He didn't go out quite as wide as early. So he controlled that mid-corner pace just a little bit more. But this is what he wants to be able to do with these guys. And this is going to be a hard track for him to continue to do that. But Valentine is so good about changing direction. I really watched him work on a lot of things here during the test. And but he's making life very difficult for Garrett right now.
Here comes Valentine DeBees and Garrett Gerloff. This is the battle for second place as JD Beach continues to eke his way out front. A 1.7 second advantage as now Gerloff takes over that second spot. Now this is a critical part for Valentine DeBees. If he wants to stay in the mix, he has got to keep Gerloff nice and close if he's going to attack him at some point.
You might see him square him up again, Greg, as they go into turn 6. We're focusing right now on JD Beach, but this is the turn 6 area where you swing out a little bit. Both these Yamaha R6 riders were doing things a little bit different in that section of the track also here during the test. But JD looks to be on rails. And, you know, just talking to him and kind of seeing him, we've seen him a couple times this weekend, even at traffic lights, haven't we? Driving on the way in.
Yeah.
He's been very relaxed, having fun, always smiling. And now we're going to see if Valentine can do anything to hold on to the back of that R6 as they get ready to go down this big, long straightaway. And I'm going to be paying attention to the third and fourth splits just to see if Garrett can close up at all.
JD Beach leading the way on that Monster Energy Yamalu YES Graves Yamaha. His teammate Garrett Gerloff is now starting to shake M4X Star Suzuki's Valentine DeBees ever so slightly. And now he's got his sights set on his teammate. But the problem with JD Beach is that after such a long layoff that we had no racing after the season ended last year, JD Beach really has continued in race form, because in testing it looked like JD Beach might have been off the pace ever so slightly, but it looked like a hard work from his Monster Energy Yamalu YS Graves Yamaha team to get him back up to form.
Some guys are very good testers, some guys aren't very good testers. You know, and so somebody like JD just kind of looks like he works with his crew chief a lot. He was telling me that it was almost good that him and his crew chief Mike Canfield had some issues last year. It felt like it almost brought them a little bit closer together to try to get the situation sorted out. Once they got that sorted out, you saw what they did with that. Now, the fact is they've come in off an off season with a brand new motorbike. They've probably diligently worked at things together, and by doing so, learned a lot last year to help put this new bike together even better to make him even more comfortable.
The lead has grown to 2.1 seconds. It's JD Beach over Garrett Gerloff, Valentine DeBees. Left part of your screen, we're going to go through that. Benny Solis holding on to fourth. Nick McFadden on his Superstock 600 machine in fifth spot. Daytona Anderson sixth. Brandon Posh in seventh. Lucas Silva in eighth. JC Camacho ninth. Caroline Olsen holding on to a top 10 over Jody Berry, Joseph Giannato, Gage Reese, and of course Brandon Cleveland was a no-starter in this one. A good look at Benny Solis on that Honda. American Honda in Torrance, California, sending out a press release just a couple days ago saying that they're in full support of Benny Solis' program. And that was good to see as we've seen Honda jump back into the MotoAmerica series in this class and Superbike. As a good look at Owensboro's Nick McFadden.
Yeah, great to see Nick. Oh, here we go. So Valentine has been doing his work again. While we were looking at some of the other riders, he's been giving Garrett a hard time. And this is what we saw. I remember at Laguna Seca last year, we saw a lot of this. Look at that Suzuki. He's able to draft that Yamaha. And don't be surprised to see Valentine pull out at the end of this straightaway and go past Garrett. Let's see if he can do anything with him. Garrett's very late on the brakes.
Oh,
Valentine's sneaking up underneath him.
There he goes. So Valentine DeBees, if he gets that motorcycle turn, he does. He takes over that position. I think maybe, Jason, that Garrett Gerloff might have been a bit surprised by the legs of that Suzuki, because Gerloff earlier on was so easily able to draft right past him.
And this just messes you up so much, especially if you feel like you're the faster rider and you can't do anything. That turn there that you saw Garrett carrying a lot of roll speed through the middle of there. Kind of messed him up on his exit, but that was the turn yesterday he tipped over in. And here you go. This is going down into turn 11. Valentine runs a little bit wide. Garrett turns it up underneath him, but now it's going to be a matter of Valentine coming out of there in first gear, going all the way through the gears, getting in the draft, and then being able to pull up alongside of him. You can see both riders frantically getting back down to first gear.
You know, that's funny you say that frantically, because I noticed that Valentine got into first gear a lot quicker. There was a late shift by Garrett Gerloff. That might have been a little bit of a difference there, as Garrett Gerloff was late getting his motorcycle into the gear he wanted to let that clutch out and get it under control. Correct. Gerloff hasn't lost much, as he's rear tire to front tire now with Valentine DeBees, as JD Beach continues to eke away. Now the margin, 3.3 seconds last time they came by the stripe.
And a 2:12.7. He's the only guy in the 12s consistently, Greg. You know, you got to feel for a little bit for Garrett, but Valentine and Garrett have this tendency to get in each other's way a little bit, and that's exactly what's going on. But Valentine's riding a tremendous race. I mean, this guy picked himself up off the ground not too long ago. Let's see if Garrett tries anything to this next right. All through here is pretty much, if the roles were reversed, Valentine would be following Garrett like directly.
Well, that kind of begs the question. I mean, these two riders, I'm sure, are trying to figure out one of two things. How do I bridge the gap to get to JD Beach, but also how do I keep this rider behind me? And it really works in JD's favor if these two riders keep battling, because when you're battling with another rider, you always lose a tenth or two or a second or whatever.
No question. You can see Garrett's going to get a big draft here. He's going to get slingshot along, different than Valentine had before. You see how that slingshot works? Now he's going to be able to put himself in that position to go underneath Valentine. Is he going to be able to hold his line? Valentine's already trying to set him up on the exit. You can see Valentine was trying to set him up. He's not going to get up quite close enough, and he's probably going to have to give up that position or turn it back underneath him here. Let's see if he's able to do that.
Look at this move. Valentine DeBees looking through the corner. Jason, you called it. So Valentine, he really set that up like two corners earlier.
Yeah, he set that up at the end of the back straightaway. They're just kind of turning and returning underneath each other there at the end of that back straightaway, and you can see Valentine through here. Coming out of turn 16, it seems like Garrett can't quite get off there as good as Valentine does. But this guy up front, just doing his work. He's just kind of going along, plotting along, putting in his laps. Garrett has to know now that him catching JD isn't even a possibility if things keep going the way they are. Now he's got to start planning his race for the end to try to minimize any bad extra result that he could get, try to get that second place. But Valentine's going to fight him all the way to the end.
So JD has backed the pace down ever so slightly, a 2:13.1 versus a 2:12.6 his fastest. We're only talking about a half a second difference on that one, as we have a look now at the 35 machine of Benny Solis. Solis putting in 2:15s in the mids. There's fifth place Daytona Anderson. Anderson clocking 2:15 in the high right now. So Anderson trying to find an answer, as he has Nick McFadden now right behind him. McFadden, of course, on that super stock 600 machine. A little different configuration in terms of Supersport. Same motorcycle, but what you're able to do is different.
Yeah, and actually I think, Greg, Nick was actually in front of Daytona last time we saw.
That's right, he was.
So he had
Daytona
actually made a pass, and
Yep.
I think when Daytona looks back at this race, I think he kind of got balked in at the start there, and that kind of ran his race early for him. It didn't look like he got the best of starts, because I've seen him this weekend run behind Valentine. I believe yesterday he was doing 2:14s even a couple days ago. He qualified at a 15 flat, but I saw him on a long run behind Valentine. Here you go, battle for second again. And Garrett's not going to be able to do anything with Valentine as they get into the turn 11 section here at the end of the back straightaway.
Wow. Whoa, a really late downshift for Garrett Gerloff, and it looks like he had that bike really deep on the brakes and almost colliding with Valentine DeBees. So Garrett Gerloff just using the Yamaha R6 in a different way, or Valentine's using his Suzuki GSX-R 600. We have a battle going on for second spot on the podium, as JD Beach now have a 4.3 second advantage over these two riders. It's M4 X-Star Suzuki's Valentine DeBees over Monster Energy Yamalube YES Graves Yamaha Garrett Gerloff, the #1 plate, trying to defend that #1 in the first round of the MotoAmerica Championship in the Supersport class.
And I would say, to be honest with you, this would be a harder track for Valentine. This isn't going to be one of his like say best tracks for that Suzuki. So he's doing an incredible job even more, just doing what he's doing here to try to salvage the second place. You can see they're headed up this big long front straightaway. Garrett's gonna just fall in behind him. So he's gonna have to follow him all the way through these S's again. Valentine comes out of here about half track the other day, and he just goes down this hill, carries a lot of corner speed through turn 2. Doesn't use up as much exit on the exit of turn 1 as some of the other guys. And you can see the lines, how they're just a little bit different down through here.
There's no doubt it's tire management time. And oh, by the way, I just have to say, last time by the stripe, JD Beach did a 2:12.9, only 0.3 off his fastest lap. So he is in a massive groove right now. As we look at Lucas Silva from Miami on that ART Performance motorcycle in 8th spot.
Right behind him, you can see JC Camacho is there on a new ride for him on a Suzuki. We're used to seeing him on an R6, I believe, last year. We go back to this battle for second. And Garrett got a great run down the hill, is able to go past. Now, Valentine's going to get his best drive he can and just do the same thing he did before. At the end of turn 11, he wants to just kind of pester Garrett. He wants to get in behind him and then try to do something with him at the end. Now, he's a little bit further back this time, Greg.
A little further back. So, in the bubble is Valentine DeBees. Choosing a different line. You can tell he wasn't really close enough to take that inside line. So DeBees has got to adjust his mind.
And this is what he does well, though. He's good at turning the bike in this next right-hander. He's going to try to get close enough. He's not quite close enough. So this could be the break that Garrett needed. If he could get Valentine to follow him through this little section, you can see Valentine's bike moving around a little bit, can't you?
Especially on the rear when he got on the gas. He may have worked that rear Dunlop a little bit too much at this point. And Gerloff, of course, riding behind him, can see that. So maybe Gerloff felt it was time to strike, as he is pushing the issue right now to try to break the will of Valentine DeBees. JD Beach now 5.7 seconds ahead of this battle for second and third spot. Now DeBees looks up the inside for a go. We'll think better of it. Across the line now, 2:13.3, and the margin up to 6 seconds.
JD's just not put a wheel wrong. It's almost unfair. We haven't got to watch any of it, but you can see how hooked up the bike looks. He doesn't even look like he's trying, Greg. He hasn't looked like he's trying this whole race, if I'm being honest. He's got a great start and just put his head down, and he's been able to do it 2 times in a row very, very convincingly, and it's going to give these guys something to think about next week. The only good thing is they've only got a week to think about it.
White flag out on this one, so this is the final lap as Valentine DeBees has got to figure something out. Without question, I don't think Valentine really wants to strike in turn 11 unless he wants to try to park Gerloff. Oh, and Valentine sideways under acceleration. It looks like that his rear tire might have had it at this point.
He's still close enough. I mean, he's trying his best, Greg, to get down this back straightaway with Garrett. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing him just try to be a little bit impatient with the throttle. Look at, he's trying to get right up the back of Garrett. If he can just sniff that draft, which I don't think he's going to be able to do again. I think that anytime that Yamaha gets that kind of gap on Valentine, it's hard for him to make it up. He's doing everything he can right now to make up that time, though.
Valentine DeBees rides a lot of road race stuff back in France. He lives within an hour's drive. He actually has a track within 15 minutes of his house and has another 3 or 4 within an hour, and he can ride any time during the week, and he takes advantage of it. Woo, he got off the brakes for a second. That made me nervous.
He wants to try to square Garrett up in that section, and he's not going to be able to. His last hope is going to be turn 19.
Garrett Gerloff with a brief moment there. His front end nearly tucking, so Gerloff starting to show that he might be having a little bit of an issue. He knows that Valentine wants to strike. This is the battle for second spot. DeBees now handed a bit of a gift as Garrett Gerloff nearly lost the front and lost some time, but time is running out for Valentine DeBees. I don't think he could do it on acceleration. He needs to be in front of Gerloff if he's going to have a chance. Here he goes up the inside. He takes the Suzuki. Wow, they're close as JD Beach comes across the line for victory, and it will be Valentine DeBees on a last corner, last lap pass.
Great job.
For second spot.
Really, really great job. We're going to follow Benny Solis home here. It's a good result for him and his dad and the whole H35 team, finishing 4th. Benny didn't get the test here a couple of weeks ago because his motors got stuck in customs. So you can see Daytona Anderson, good job for Daytona, also finishing 5th. I think he'll look back at his start. Now look at Nick McFadden here finishing 6th. kind of got a weekend under his belt now before he starts off next weekend in Atlanta.
Brandon Posh will take 7th spot as we wait for riders come across. So JD Beach getting confirmation that Valentine was 2nd spot. And I'm going to tell you, in that battle for the championship, there's no doubt that JD loves the fact that he finishes first with a maximum 25 points. Valentine will score 20, and his teammate Garrett Gerloff only 16. So Beach now with a 9-point advantage over his teammate. So congratulations to Monster Energy Yamalu YES Graves Yamaha rider JD Beach, who continues his season-ending streak of 7. He now extends it to 8 wins in a row. We're going to take a commercial break. After that, we'll be back right here on beIN Sports for more from Circuit of the Americas. Don't go anywhere. First Supersport race of the year is in the books here at Circuit of the Americas. The MotoAmerica AMA-FIM North American Road Race Championship. And down in Parc Ferme is JD Beach, who just got there. Of course, this is a long cool-down lap, no question about it, with 3.4 miles. Not the longest racetrack we have on the circuit, but definitely one of the longer ones. As JD Beach being congratulated by his team, friends and family as well. What a great race for 2nd spot, though, as JD Beach's margin of victory will come out at 4.9 seconds. So you can tell JD with a 2:14.649 definitely put it on bring it home mode on the last lap, JP.
No question, and very rarely do we see lap time that is going to be 0.6 quicker than the next. So JD was just running in the 12s a lot during that race. He went 12.6 as his best. The next best we see is Garrett at a 12.9. So sorry about it's 0.3 there, but to Valentine's best was a 2:13.2. So it just goes to show, with a little bit of strategy and a guy who's really determined like Valentine is, you know, he got his year started. He was on the deck at one point. He was on the ground at one point.
Yeah, not too long ago in this race.
He was 20 points.
Yeah, he certainly did. So a lot of resolve and experience on Valentine DeBeese's part to bring home his M4 X-Star Suzuki into 2nd spot. And that was a spectacular race, a great way to start the season here in the MotoAmerica Championship. As JD Beach, can you imagine, 8-race win streak. I mean, the guy has got to be just sitting on a total high. And he's with Hannah right now.
That's right, guys. I'm here with race winner JD Beach. JD, amazing start to the season. That's 8 in a row for you. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling real good. My whole team has worked so hard this offseason, and coming into this year, I was really scared. I mean, I broke my leg last October, and that's the first thing I've ever broke before, so it was a lot for me to overcome. But I mean, I just can't thank my whole team enough. I mean, I just don't got any words. I mean, I wasn't expecting this, and to come out and win like I did just feels great, and to start the year off like this is awesome. But I mean, it's still a long year to go, and we're just going to keep fighting.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to watching you this season. Best of luck to you, JD. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, that's got to be a scary thing. When you injure yourself in the offseason, JD's never had to come back from that. And so I think that this really is proving something to himself and his team about his resolve. So great job by the 95 and that Monster Energy Yamalu YES Graves Yamaha team. And of course, fist in the air. I mean, the greatest feeling in the world is when a racer is able to bring home a race win for his team and doing it in fine style. So congratulations to JD Beach on that dominating performance. And the thing is, Jason, is he did it twice. He did it twice.
Yeah, and he's really set the standard, and you can't win them all if you don't win the first one, as they say. So right now he's on a run, and you wouldn't be shocked if he kind of started just dominating like he did last year.
So here's a look at the results. It's JD over Valentine and Garrett. You can see that battle was a great one, close, 4.9 to 5.4. Benny Solis
all alone in 4th spot. Then Daytona Anderson had to reel in Nick McFadden and pass him after that start. McFadden, though, the first of our Superstock 600 riders to bring it home. On back to Caroline Olsen. Caroline Olsen doing her fastest lap of the weekend here at Circuit of the Americas, on her way to a top 10 finish over Gage Reese, Joseph Giannotto, Jody Berry, and of course Brandon Cleland, who went out, didn't start the race after he crashed his motorcycle in the first part of the race before the red flag, dropping some fluid on the racetrack. So a mix of riders from different parts of the world in the race, as well as manufacturers. And a good job by all, though, to bring it home and race in front of not only this crowd, but also the MotoGP paddock.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime you can win in front of them, you never know who's watching. So great job for JD Beach today.
JD Beach, of course, has a lot of friends in the MotoGP paddock after his world championship back in the late 2000s. So we're going to take a break on beIN Sports. We still have the Motul Superbike class coming up. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be awesome.